Hey guys, we're out here at the 2019 NHRA US Nationals. We're checking out some drag racing, and I came across my buddy Steve Sullivan, who I've known for a long time. He races this Foxbody Mustang behind me in stock Eliminator. It's still a 5-liter HO that he bought new. What year is it?
1988.
It's an 88 model. He's running in the 11s with this thing, still with many of the stock parts. So Steve's going to show us the car, and then we're going to watch him go out on track and make a couple runs.
Never had a real hot rod car before. The cars I raced in bracket racing were like a 6-cylinder Fairlane or a LTD station wagon. So this was really my first and only hot rod for the street. It was actually a 5-speed car when we bought it, and it had the HO package. So the HO motor, and it had the HO suspension. It now has a C4 transmission that I operate with this shifter here. You're allowed to, you have to maintain a stock appearance, but that means that the heater can come out, and so I can put gauges up where I can see them. I still have the tilt wheel. All the operation of the car is just done here with these switches, and then I've mounted the control DFI system where it's just kind of handy and doesn't get affected by heat. And then the ignition system is also down in the front. I tried to make the car stay very stock in appearance, and so this is kind of where it all happens as far as driving the car.
So Steve, stock Eliminator is one of the most challenging classes in all of NHRA competition. A lot of rules restrictions. A lot of the car has to remain as is from the factory. What's appealing to you about stock Eliminator, and what made you want to race this particular car?
Well, I've always been a Ford person, and I always like stock and super stock for the challenge of within a certain set of guidelines of what you could and couldn't do, using what you learned and what you could find out and what you could test to make you faster than a guy with a combination like yours. So it always really just appealed to me to be able to work on the car. You know, I built the car. I do my own transmissions and engines, of course with help from people with machine work and such. But you know, to me, stock Eliminator is just a very fascinating way to go racing.
Steve, once you're strapped in the car and you're in the staging lanes or you're at the ready line, take us through a run. What do you do to make this thing go down the track?
Well, after I start it, I generally, when I get ready to go in the water box, depending on kind of how cool everything is, I might put it in drive and lean on the converter to build a little bit of heat. Then I'll pull into the water box, pull it in first, put on the line lock, and then when they give us the signal to do our burnouts, I just go from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, let go of the button, and pull out of the water. Then once I get up to the starting line, what I usually do is first look at my gauges, make sure the oil's where I want it, the water's where I want it, trans temperature. Then I go up and I pre-stage, and then right before I stage, I'll reach down and hit the data recorder so they can start recording the different parameters that I want. And then basically you just pump in and leave on the last yellow and hope that your reaction was right. And once you get down the track, go through first gear. First gear happens like in less than 60 feet. I don't realize it in the car, but when I did the analysis, you just hit it once, and then when I get up to 6,700 the second time, I hit it in high gear, and then you just go on down. One of the things you are allowed to do is have adjustable front struts, and in this particular case, at this particular track, what seems to work best for getting a light and getting traction is 1.5 turns towards the firm side. So that's what I'm doing now, is just getting it set up for tomorrow's first round. One of the big challenges of doing the stock Eliminator is taking an engine that is essentially stock, and by that I mean the intake manifold and bottom manifold both have to be stock, both in measurement and the right part number that's cast into the intake. The valves have to remain stock in size. The valve train has to be essentially stock. You're allowed to change some parts. But basically the crankshaft, you're only allowed about 15 thousandths variance on the stroke. The pistons and the rods have to weigh basically a certain amount to be able to be called stock. So within those parameters, you try to find different types of rings and camshafts. On the camshaft, you're allowed to have only the lift that came with the car, but any duration you can have. So that's why the cars always sound so kind of radical for a stocker, is because the duration on these cams is pretty wild.
So Steve, in checking out the engine, it looks like you got a pretty neat set of headers on there. Tell us about those.
Well, off-the-shelf headers work pretty good, and that's what I started with. When I put some merge collectors on the original headers, that helped. But I knew that I could probably manufacture some headers that would be much more equal length and staggered as far as getting bigger as they progressed. So I just got some tubes and a TIG welder and went to town. It's not something that you want to do every day, at least not me.
So some of the challenges of NHRA stock Eliminator are just that, stock, that most of the car has to remain stock. As we talked about with the engine, stock intake manifold, stock throttle body, stock cylinder heads as far as the casting number, no porting or polishing, stock valve sizes. A lot of it has to remain stock, and that's part of the challenge. Most of the interior has to be there. You can use race seats. Steve has the stock seats in his car. And stock rear suspension, as far as you can put some aftermarket control arms in, but the control arm location has to remain stock, as well as the stock shock mounting location. You can use adjustable shocks, which is cool, and the tire and wheel combo in stock Eliminator is 9x30 on the slicks, and you can put skinnies up front for lightweight. But the body has to remain steel, the hood, the hatch, no fiberglass parts. Steve mentioned the weight, and depending on the horsepower and the class you run in, that kind of determines what weight you run in as far as minimum weight with the driver. So a lot of challenges in stock Eliminator, a lot of testing and tuning to make everything work just right. The cars hook hard, they go fast, and Steve's is a real runner. Steve, you're getting ready to run first round. We wish you the best luck. You've done qualifying, everything's looking good. So good luck out there on track, and hopefully you bring home that NHRA Wally after this weekend is over.
Thank you very much. I want to also mention that none of this would have happened without my wonderful wife Peggy, who actually met at the drag strip, and she actually drove this car for the first 6 years that we owned it, back and forth to work. And it was her that suggested maybe that would make a nice stocker, and so she's been by my side for 34 years.
That's awesome, man. So good luck out there on track, and we'll be watching. And thanks for checking out the channel. Make sure you subscribe.
Stock Eliminator at the U.S. Nationals is you run for class, and in this particular case I ran an N stock automatic this year and was the overall winner, so I get me a Wally.